Today I'm delighted to be in conversation with Mark Hayward, who has been my solicitor for how many years, Mark? 32 years, something like that?
30 odd.
30 odd years, my God, it seems like 60. Anyway, some of you may have heard his name because when I do my seminars and I speak at different events, Mark does get a mention, the fact that he's such a good solicitor and that he's away on holiday quite a lot these days, and he has to exchange contracts when he's on the beach and all over the place for me. But anyway, Mark, thank you so much for doing this for me. It's a pleasure to have you talking to us today.
You're more than welcome.
So all those years ago, Mark, when I walked in your office, what was your first thought? Did you think we'd be working together 32 years later?
Probably not, if I'm honest. No, it was that sort of period of time, and it's interesting, isn't it, how long these relationships last? And it's been interesting to see how you sort of developed over that time as well, John.
Yeah, they were exciting times, Mark, weren't they? Though
they were. They were. That the deals were coming quick and thick and fast.
Thick and fast they were. They were.
And and things have changed since then.
I think they have, and also, the competition wasn't so great then, was it?
No.
Funding was harder, to be fair. It was harder to get. There weren't that many banks who'd lend.
No, they weren't.
And it was harder to start with in many ways, but there were great opportunities. More so than there are today, in my view.
I think that's right. As you said, there weren't as many people out there doing the development work. There's lots of people who've jumped on the bandwagon over the years. Sure,
and some of them, Mark, are very, very good, and some, I help in my seminars and when I speak and through the Property Elevator show and the Property Graduate show we do. So, I have embraced it really.
Yeah.
And our joint venture fund, obviously, people can come to us with deals, which means I haven't got to go out and find them, which is even better, Mark,
Absolutely.
as far as I'm concerned. But we still go out and find our own, obviously. But
no, I think there's lots of people sort of looking to jump on the bandwagon. I think lots of people think it's easy and straightforward, and it's far from easy and straightforward. And they hear stories of the amounts of money that can be made, and it's not that easy, and there's lots that can go wrong, and it needs somebody to actually guide them a lot of it.
It does.
A lot of the newcomers.
And of course, you need a very good solicitor, don't you, Mark?
Of course you do. You always do. And that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
And
what would your advice be, Mark, to someone looking to appoint a new solicitor these days?
I think one thing to say is go on recommendation. So if you know somebody who's used a solicitor before and has a good thing to say about them, that's number one. Look at someone who specialises in the area that you want to deal with. Buying a residential house to live in is different from buying an investment property, and certainly solicitors will specialise in different areas. If you're looking to develop a property, again, it's not always your run-of-the-mill residential conveyancer who's the best bet in that situation. So I would say look for recommendations for people who've done it before, and make sure that you quiz the solicitor before you instruct them to make sure they've got experience in the area that you're actually developing.
That's if you, and of course, if you can't get hold of them very quickly on an email or by phone, don't even point them in the first place.
I think that's right.
You've got to be able to get on together and have a relationship, and we've had I believe a special relationship over the last 30 odd years, and I know when you say to me, John, this is a problem, it's serious, I know you mean it.
Yeah.
So that helps as well.
I think it does, and there are lots of little bits that you come across from time to time, and normally an indemnity insurance policy or something like that will resolve the problem. And I think working with each other for so long, I just get on and do that a lot of the time without even.
You mean you don't tell me?
No, I don't always tell you about those things. I think it's a relationship. You need to get on very well with them. Nowadays, so much is done by email. But and that's all well and good, but you need to somehow get over that and actually sit down and meet with them and have a conversation with them.
I agree, and we meet in the odd coffee shop now and again these days. It's all changed, isn't it?
We can't mention any particular
We
names,
can't, no.
but there are lots of meetings in coffee shops over the last 2 years, particularly with COVID.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's and the one thing that I would finish by saying on that subject is the one thing is the advice I always give people is ask your solicitor, is it going to be mortgageable once I've done the work? Yeah, can we sell the property on? Is it a problem that you've identified that means that it isn't mortgageable? Because I might be getting a bridge on it or cash, but it's the next person you've got to make sure the next person can buy it. And I think that's the one takeaway, answer really, or question/answer that I think is really important when you're talking to solicitors about a problem on a particular property.
It's about solving the problem rather than just identifying the problem. And we joked about insurance earlier, but largely insurance is acceptable to most buyers. So if there is a minor problem, there's no point in making a big fuss about it. If you can get an insurance policy for a few pounds that you know is going to be acceptable to a purchaser, that's really all you're after, to know that you can get rid of it smoothly.
So Mark, we've done many deals over the last 30 odd years, and you've transacted all of them for me. So what would the two most standout deals do you think be that I've done over the years that have been interesting to you, or more challenging, or big or small, or most profitable, whatever? What do you think?
Well, of all of them, I suppose there are two that stand out. The transactions involving Cambridge United Football Club,
Cambridge United, yes,
are memorable.
Yes.
Partly because of the profile.
Yeah.
Partly because of the speed that we had to do them. If I remember right, it was discussions Friday afternoon to get it done. Over the weekend or the following week.
And of course, people say you can't buy a property quickly. Of course, that's one of the lawyers' big things, isn't it?
It is, and to be frank, if you've got cash, you can buy it as quickly as you want to buy it, can't you? It's searches and inquiries and all of this sort of thing are at the end of the day optional, and if you're prepared to take a risk on those revealing something adverse, then
so for the people watching this on YouTube, I was a director of Cambridge United for 18 years. The club were in financial trouble, and myself and my partner purchased the ground off the club, which a lot of the fans were not in agreement with, but the board of directors were in agreement with. We then leased it back to the club for 50 years at £200,000 a year rent.
Yes.
And then 5 years later, we then sold it on to a subsidiary of Grosvenor Estates, who believed they could relocate the club, build the club a new ground and build on the existing site.
Yes.
And interestingly, I only heard last week, after another 7 years, that the club are buying the ground back.
Are they?
So Grosvenor Estates didn't manage to do
no.
any more than we could do with it. So that's interesting.
I remember us having a look at relocation and doing some option agreements and that sort of thing to try and tie it up, but it didn't happen, and as you said, it sounds like Grosvenor haven't been able to do it either.
No, I don't think so. So that's the first one. Yeah. So that was high profile, lots of pressure. A few thousand people shouting at me on a regular basis at football grounds, telling me in not a very polite way that I shouldn't have bought the ground. Anyway, but that's the first one. Yeah.
I suppose the second one must be the wine rack, mustn't it, in Ipswich, which was again is still going on to an extent, and that has had lots of challenges for you, I know. Not least the car parking. The
car stack, a very unusual system. 264 car spaces in the core of the building, second biggest in the country of its type, and obviously it's high profile for Ipswich. As my wife Jane said, you don't want to get this one wrong, John. I can see it from all over Ipswich. It could be very embarrassing if this deal doesn't work out well. Thank you very much. So,
well, I think it has worked out well,
really
as
yeah,
it happens, hasn't it? But yes, it was an eyesore down on the docks for many years, and you've taken that eyesore and converted it and done what was intended to.
So we've got 150 flats and commercial, virtually all of. I think you've sold 130 odd flats down there. So that's great business for you, isn't it?
It's good business.
Buy one big lump and then divide it by 150 or whatever and sell them off individually. And I've been paying you every a few times a week recently as the sales go through. So that's perfect business for solicitors, isn't it?
It's good business for us. Yes, of course it is. And I'm pleased to see that it's all worked out, and you've managed to get rid of them. It's not far away from getting concluded.
No, it's close now. Yeah. And it's been, like you said, it's been challenging. 18-story block of flats is always a challenge one way or the other. But with your help in purchasing it in the correct manner, and also being able to split the titles, sell them all off individually, that's been great. So thank you for that.
It's been an interesting project, and I know there's been lots more going on behind the scenes that I haven't been involved with the construction side of it and all.
Yeah, you just get the easy bit.
I get the easy bit, selling them off at the end. And, very much the easy bit. But that's the second project I think that sort of stands out in my mind over the years.
So, Mark, we're both of a certain age really now. I think you're slightly younger than me, slightly. But over the years, obviously the market, the market's changed, but also your industry's changed greatly. How has that affected you, and what have the changes been?
It's changed beyond recognition, to be honest with you, over that 30-year period. When I started, there was no emails. Faxes had only just come in, so the communication side of things has changed dramatically. In the old days, the good old days, you could send a letter out and you knew it would be a week before you got a response and didn't have to reply. Now you send an email out and within 30 seconds you've had a response.
I hope so. Yeah. I hope so, Mark. I hope so. Not always, but I hope so.
So that side of the industry has changed dramatically. The communication side is so much quicker than obviously it ever was. And built in with that, it's becoming much more of an IT industry, in that so much of what we do now, the searches are all done electronically, the communication is all done electronically. It's fairly rare to have a letter going backwards and forwards between the lawyers. It is very much done through the computer systems, through the internet, and using case management systems. Most firms of solicitors will have a case management system, so they'll have a set of standard letters, standard inquiries that go out.
Standard leases,
standard documentation for everything.
Yeah, okay, Mark, well that sounds great, but why the hell then does it take just as long to sell a property or buy a property than it always has done? In fact, longer sometimes.
The other thing that has changed is the admin and the regulations that we have to deal with. There's a lot of client identification up front, so people will know that if you're instructing a solicitor, they want copies of passports, driving licences, all of that. Of course, that never happened when we just got on with it. So that all takes a period of time. The regulations that we deal with, looking at electricity certificates, looking at gas certificates, all of the planning side of it, that's far more complicated than it ever used to be. All of those regulations, all the new stuff about cladding and all of that, of course, is the regulations just weren't there in the early days, and that all takes extra time.
But do you think a solicitor really should be dealing with that type of thing? I mean, should you really have to deal with electrical certificates and gas certificates? surely that's not a lawyer's job.
Well, John, I agree with you completely on that.
It seems crazy.
It does seem crazy, and we're not qualified in any of that. Asbestos reports, we're always coming across asbestos reports. But it's not something other than physically getting the document and sending it to you. It's nothing but anything on the actual asbestos report, particularly.
But presumably these days, these financial institutions who are lending the money to your clients, you have a responsibility to them. They presumably force you to do all this extra work and put your neck on the line, really.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Largely it's a tick box exercise. If you've got that piece of paper, if you've got that document, if you've seen it, then they're satisfied with it. But you're absolutely right. Every time we sign a report on title to a lender, to a bridger, we're effectively telling them that the title is acceptable. And in the old days, yes, it would just be that legal title was acceptable. Yeah. But now they're wanting us to guarantee that all the services are correct, that all the asbestos reports are there, the fire certificates are there, all of that sort of thing.
And the windows have a what's it called on the windows?
There's a fencer certificate
on the windows. I mean, it just seems crackers to me.
Yeah, and so it's collecting pieces of paper more than actually advising you on those pieces of paper. Yeah. But it's all just a host of extra questions, really, which necessitate the collection of those pieces of paper.
My heart absolutely sinks when I hear on the other side of the transaction there's someone using one of these. I call them factory solicitors. What do the ones that? What do you call them? I mean,
well, I suppose that's what we call them. Factory firms. Yes, they're large firms who different solicitors deal with conveyancing transactions in different ways. From our point of view, each client is appointed a lawyer. That lawyer will normally have a team, will have an assistant, maybe one or two assistants helping them. But you've got a point of contact, and it's a point of contact. It's a senior point of contact from day one. I think where the factory conveyancers differ is that
they've just come. They haven't been around long, have they?
Oh no, 10 years maybe, that sort of period of time, I suppose. But it tends to be done at a lower level initially. So all of the initial paperwork is done at sort of an administrative level rather than by the lawyers.
Nobody qualified.
No, nobody qualified really, and then the time it hits somebody who's qualified, the transaction just tends to be, very well advanced. Yeah. So when you're thinking about exchanging contracts and talking about completion dates, all of a sudden it's the paperwork's coming across the lawyer's desk. They're looking at it, starting to raise inquiries.
More inquiries.
Which, you would have thought should have been done at an earlier stage. So I think that's the frustration
I agree entirely, and I think the other thing that really frustrates me is when you have a buyer, their solicitor won't do anything hardly until the mortgage offer's been. They've got a mortgage offer on it. Then they send the searches off to be done. It drives me nuts, and I always say to people who are buying, who want to get on with it quickly, don't wait. Don't wait until you've got your mortgage offer to put your search in. Get the search in. Make sure the solicitor puts the search in my new book, Move Right, which is for the general people, general public really looking to buy a property or selling a property. That's one of the takeaways from the book really is to get organised, be organised, and make sure that don't always you tell your solicitor what you want to do, not the other way around.
I think so. Searches are the things that can take time. It varies from local authority to local authority. Some of them are better than others, and to be fair, recently they have got quicker. But that's the thing that can take some time, and the sooner you actually put the search in, then the quicker it comes back. And again, if the search shows up anything adverse, the sooner you know that there's something adverse, the easier it is to resolve the problem.
Exactly. No, I thank you for that, because I completely agree with what you said. And you know, who knows where the future's going? And where do you think the future is going for solicitors? Because it's all getting even more techy, isn't it? I suppose.
I think it is getting more techy, and I think that's the way the industry is going. To be honest with you, I think it's going to continue to become more and more techy. You know, every day we're getting new emails from software suppliers saying that they've got something that can do a little bit extra. So
like exchange contracts quicker.
Exchange.
You haven't answered that question.
I've avoided.
You've avoided it completely, Mark. You know, why aren't transactions happening quicker?
I wish I knew, because if I knew the answer to that, I would probably be making more money than I am. It is difficult. I think at the moment, during and over the last 2 years where we've had COVID, the market has been very, very busy.
Yeah.
And I think everyone has just been extremely busy. And
I don't feel too sorry for them, Mark.
no, but it does tend to delay things, and you're normally involved in a chain, and of course you're only as quick as the slowest person in the chain.
I think
that's the real problem.
That is the problem. I totally agree with you, and I can't see whatever tech comes out, Mark. I can't see that changing.
No,
I honestly can't.
As long as the system remains the same, the tech isn't going to help that. The tech is getting searches back quicker.
Yeah.
It's helping us submit SDLT returns and land registry applications quicker because we can do it all online. So it's helping us in that way, but it's not particularly speeding up the transaction. It still needs someone to sit down, look at the piece of paper and to process it.
Exactly.
And it's
and if someone can't move at the end of the chain for the next 6 weeks or something, it's not going to happen, is it?
no. And there isn't one particular problem. You know, every chain is different. You know, it might be someone struggling to get a mortgage offer.
Yeah.
It might be it might be a leasehold property somewhere, and leasehold properties tend to have a lot more requirements, a lot more regulations, a lot more work involved with them. So it's a whole host of problems that can slow the chain down.
So, yeah.
And of course, sometimes people aren't always sure. You never quite know whether the person at the bottom of the chain really wants that property. No. It's not been unknown that they're trying to get 2 properties at once, and one of them is going to get ditched at the last minute.
So you haven't really cheered me up at all.
No, I haven't. And
I can't see. Like you, I can't see how that's going to change.
No,
I really don't.
But we tried these things called HIPs a few years ago, which you might remember, and that was supposed to be the saving grace of the conveyancing system and speed.
And the idea of that was that you got everything done first before you put it on the market, and
Yes.
you paid for it to be done first. Because not many people like to pay for their own search of their own property and all this, and surveys up front, did they? It sort of didn't really work at all.
It didn't, and of course the searches have a limited lifespan, so you pay for it up front, and if you can't sell your house within a few months, then you've got to renew the search again.
So it didn't really work.
It didn't really work. There is some benefit, particularly if you're selling a property, to get your solicitor instructed when you put the property on the market.
Sure, absolutely.
Because I think that gives them the ability to get all of the forms filled in, to have a look at the title, to see if there's anything extra that's needed, to talk to you about planning permissions, building regulations, to get all of the paperwork in place before you actually find a buyer.
Absolutely, and I think that's a really good takeaway point from today's chat. Really, is that if you're looking to get yourself organised, isn't it? Get organised. If you're looking to sell, even if it's your own home, get everything together, get all the certificates together you've got, get them to your solicitor early before you have a buyer, so he or she can then get organised. Less excuse then, from the solicitor's point of view. There's no excuses in my view ever, but anyway, less excuse as to why the contract hasn't gone out to the buyer, because you've got it organised beforehand. And of course, if you're selling a development of any sort, even more important to get what we call a sales pack together, isn't it?
Absolutely, it's essential. In that scenario.
Get a sales pack together and everything that's going to be required by the purchaser when you have a purchaser by their solicitors, so that it goes out the following day. The whole thing, automatic thing goes out.
And as we were saying before, there's so much paperwork, particularly on new builds. All of these certificates that you need to put forward. And a buyer's solicitor is going to expect it, and if you haven't got it, it's just going to result in inquiry after inquiry until you can produce it. So the sooner you can get that paperwork together and sent over, the better.
Great. Mark, you obviously started off working for a solicitor's firm like everyone did. Do you want to tell everyone how your career has changed and how successful? Because you've been very successful in your career.
Yes. I started working for a firm of solicitors. I joined from sixth form. I was fortunate enough to get a position.
You did sixth form.
I did
A-levels.
I did A-levels.
Goodness me, that's better than me anyway.
I won't tell you what results I got. I did A-levels. So I spent a number of years working for sort of fairly large regional firms. Started off doing residential conveyancing, moved into the commercial side of the property, and have been very, very lucky working with a number of very good solicitors over the years. About 15 years, just over 15 years ago, me and my now business partner decided it was sort of time to branch out and do it ourselves rather than working for
I remember getting the phone call.
Do you?
I remember getting a phone call saying, I've decided to set up on my own, John, and hopefully you'll support me. And I had to think about it for all of about 1 second and go, yeah, of course we will, that's fantastic, well done you.
It was interesting times, you know. I think
good fun.
It was good fun, and we'd both hit sort of 40 at the time, and we thought if we don't do it now, we're never going to do it. And we sort of grasped the nettle and made the decision, and haven't looked back since, to be honest.
So Hayward Moon is what the company's called, and I'm always plugging you at my events and so on. As I said, I hope no one's going to use you because I won't be able to. You won't do my work for me. But you have got, how many staff have you got now?
We've got about 70.
That's amazing. That is an amazing success.
So we've got 6 officers around the area, 70 staff.
Yeah. So plenty of staff to cope with all the new clients you're going to. I keep recommending clients to you, as you know, Mark, and we'll continue to do so.
Well, that's very kind of you.
Not at all. I still haven't got any commission out of it. So Mark, look, thank you for talking to us today. It's been an absolute star, and thank you for all your help and support over the last 30 odd years. And I'm certainly want to go for another 20 odd years at least. I'm not sure you want to by the sound of things, but can we have 10 out of you? Can you promise me 10 more years?
I'll try to give you 10.
Top man.
Thank you very much.